Hello out there, and today we're going to be taking a look at a number of new releases from Crescent Tools, and these are budget knives that are being thrown into the market to compete against, some of the other $20, $25, maybe sub $20 options that are out there. And these are pretty good beaters. I'm excited to talk about them, but before we get into it at all, I need to share with you some information about our hypothetical sponsor of the day. That's right, guys. We have a hypothetical sponsor on this channel now, and today it is One A Day Men's Complete Multivitamin. All right, this gives you nutritional support for 6 key vital functions that can't be listed here because it has not been evaluated by the FDA. But if you are a male in our society in these troubled times and you think to yourself, wow, I really don't know how I'm going to get my daily dose of riboflavin. If you think, I don't know what niacin is, but I'm just not getting enough, then this One A Day men's vitamin really might be for you. These come in a bunch of different sizes. This is the 100 tablet container, cost around 10 bucks, maybe a little bit less. So, for less than the price of a Starbucks coffee and a bacon Gouda sandwich, that is pretty delicious if you go there, you can get on the right track to health and safety, again, in these troubled times. Forget that you don't know what folate is, just understand that you don't get enough of it, and you need to get a multivitamin in order to help supplement your daily dose of folate. All of these things over here, who knows what they do to your body and how they help you, but they help you and you're not getting enough, so you definitely need to get something like this. Now, there are some things you need to be aware of, guys. If you are a pregnant or breastfeeding male, you definitely don't want to be taking this without consulting your physician. All right, so let's be aware of that. Keep these out of the reach of children because they are not worthy of getting the riboflavin and niacin and folate that you might be looking for. All right? Pay attention to all the other jibber jabber that's on this label. And yeah, that's really all I got when it comes to One A Day. It's something that, so it's a really, really tough time here in the world, and we need to be focused on our health just a little bit more than we are. So One A Day men's vitamins, the hypothetical sponsor of the day. All right, now let's get to these knives. So we've got 4 knives here, and it's 2 different models. These were sent to me by my buddy Steve Kluver. If you don't know Steve, he's a big supporter of a number of different YouTube channels. I really appreciate him picking all these up. He bought these on Amazon, shipped them to me. He's letting me keep the smaller ones. These are 3.25 inches, and then the larger ones, which are 3.5, I'm sending along to him. And so we have 2 different models, 2 different variations of each that have some different materials and steels, and so we're going to talk about all of them. I'm going to focus today, though, on the smaller ones because they're the ones that I've been carrying and using the most, and then we'll talk about some of the differences and some of the things about the larger ones that you need to know as well. All right, so for the people who aren't aware, Crescent is a company that is a tool company. All right, so they've been around for a long time. They've become a conglomerate and have accumulated a number of different smaller companies under their umbrella, and now they're releasing some knives, some modern type of knives, and yeah, getting into the budget knife game. So what we have with this one is a 5CR15 blade, and the other one of the same size is D2, but this one has aluminum scales. This one is a GFN plastic scale. And what you're going to notice in these knives is a lot of compromises with things that, maybe we look for in knives that we're not going to get at this price point, but then a number of things that are really good about them that you might not get from other knives at this price point. So it's always going to be about a compromise and what you value. These knives all come with what we have in a clamshell packaging, and they tell you some of the details about them. So these are the clamshell packages for the smaller ones. And so you can see D2 on the one, they're both on bearings. Deep carry pocket clip, which is a big selling point for this knife. And then, yeah, drop point blade design, and you can see all the things that they're trying to sell you on. As far as where these are manufactured, you see the big USA on the back. They are not made in the USA. They're designed, engineered, tested in the USA, so whatever that means. Product of Vietnam, so made in Vietnam, finished in China, so it is an import knife. And if you go on Amazon to pick these up, you're only going to find one listing, and under that listing, you'll see all 4 of these options at different prices. And it varies because stuff on Amazon does go up and down. The cheapest of these that I saw was around like 16 bucks, and the most expensive at the time of filming was 25 or 26 $26. All right, so again, none of these are going to break the bank. They're going to be users. I'll tell you at the end of the video, when I'm going over the value, who I really think these are for and what other types of knives these compete against best. All right, but let's just get started with some of the details. So the one that I've used the most is this one right here, the 5CR15 one. I know everybody gets on me about me using the cheaper steels, but I actually prefer this knife over the D2 one, and it's really a matter of weight. So we'll get to the weight in just a second, but yeah, what we have is a 5CR15 or a D2 blade. The D2 one has this nice black wash finish, a little more satin going on the 5CR15. It is a pretty good looking blade. The lines of the knife are basic, almost generic, and they're things that we've seen before. It reminds me a lot of a Civivi Elementum or the Wii Practic. It has just a very classic blade design and a classic line overall. I also started thinking about other things that had the same basic shape, and I have an Ontario Rat 1 here, and you can see some similarities in the handle design as well. So yeah, it is not going to be anything that design-wise is going to knock your socks off, but it is just a basic tool. It's a user knife. So that is certainly not a bad thing at this price point. So like I said, 5CR15 on this one. Nice grind. It's pretty darn thin. Came super sharp out of the box, so we definitely have that. One of the big pluses, and you can see the jimping on this, the jimping is really good and functional. The problem with it, and we'll see this across the board, is that the finishing isn't all that fantastic. So the finishing on the jimping isn't great. It's uneven. It's not machined all that well, and you can see that, but it's functional. It grips the thumb really nicely, locks you in, so that is a really, really good thing, I'd say. And for me, if I'm getting a knife like this, I'm really not too worried about it not being perfectly machined. As far as size comparisons go, let's bring in a couple things real quick. Here's the PM2, so you can get an understanding of that. 3.25-inch cutting edge on this, so it's actually right in line with the cutting edge of the PM2. A little bit shorter overall. What else do we have here? We have the Cold Steel Airlight, which actually is a pretty good comparison as well. Let's bring in one of the larger ones to compare against the Cold Steel so we can see that. All right, so a pretty good user size, I would say. One of the big things that holds this knife back, and one of the ways that compromise is very clear, is that there's no internal machining, there's no weight relief, so these knives are a little bit on the heavy side. So we have 4.37 on the GFN or plastic handled one, and then the aluminum handle is 4.87. So yeah, a little bit hefty. Again, if you're beating up on a knife, you might want that. The larger ones with the 3.5-inch blades, 5.1 ounces, and then the aluminum one here, 5.8. So yeah, there's a little bit of weight going on here because, again, they just didn't decide to spend the money on relieving it. But also, if you take a look, these knives could almost be frame locks with how thick the liners are. So they are overbuilt. They are durable in that sense, where it doesn't feel like anything that you come across over the course of the day is something you're going to need to shy away from carrying one of these. So again, back to the purpose of a beater knife, that for a lot of people won't be a bad thing. Sorry I'm so shaky, guys. I've been outside doing yard work all day and just gripping tools and struggling with that stuff. I don't know if you heard me talk about it in a recent video as well. It's just, yeah, a little bit worn out. Anyway, as we move on back, let's take a look at the scales on both of these knives. So the GFN one is preferable for me. It is a little bit less slick, even though there's no kind of contouring, there's no kind of pattern or anything. It's a little less slick than the aluminum, which has really no kind of coating at all. All right, what I will say, the saving grace is ergonomically with these two smaller knives is that the jimping is great and the finishing, at least on the edges, is good, so there's no hot spots and it locks in really, really well. So I'm not really concerned about there not being any grip. I would love more points of contact, but again, that's not something that you're going to get. A little bit of paint here from some of the work that I've been doing, so it's not really a scuff, it's just a paint on this one. All right, so we do have that. You can also see the red standoffs. They're nothing special. It's not anodized aluminum. It's just like a red painted standoff. Gives a pop of color if you care about stuff like that. For me, not really a big deal. Again, sort of bare bones when it comes to that. One of the big wins with this knife is the pocket clip, and that's what it seems like they really cared about, and that's one of the things in the community that you guys know that seems to be a hot spot. It's always a talking point. People want a deep carry pocket clip, and you get it on this. So that's good. It is not reversible on any of these four to the left side, so that might be a negative depending on who you are and how you carry. All right. Another big win for me is the lockup. The lockup on these knives is good. These are strong knives. They seem to be well built in all of the main areas that you need a knife to perform in order for it to be usable. So, you take all these shortcuts, and then if you have a knife that doesn't lock up, then it's a loss, a big loss. But that's really not the case here. We have a knife that seems to be built to function, and I haven't beat the crap out of these. I've used this one quite a bit already, but I haven't beat the crap out of them, so I don't know how that holds up over time. I can't tell you that at this point, but I can say that I'm happy with the way that it is out of box, and the way that it looks and the way that it locks up. The other big thing that's a big win, and again, I don't know if the people at Crescent Tools were just sort of looking at message boards or getting feedback about what knife people really care about, but the action on these is really good. It's really, really good. On bearings, so you have a knife that isn't quite dropping shut, and I haven't disassembled these, but it is pretty smooth closing it. But the thing that I really like is on a lot of these knives that have that really nice bearing kind of action, the opening detent is just really soft. And so they're knives that you can shake out. And this is not the case with the Crescent knives at all, not on any of them. They're really nice and snappy, authoritative deployment. I really like that, so this is a good knife, even though it's only like 20 something bucks. It's a good knife to fidget with, that is for sure. Really good and snappy. The detent is excellent. So they did a great job with that on all four of these examples. One of them is a little bit more stiff than the others. I'll get to that one in just a bit. So we do have that really nice snappy action, and that goes a long way, for me, just being able to enjoy a knife in different kinds of capacities. So, maybe that's something that they really looked at when they were trying to develop it, but it really worked out.
And now for 30 seconds of uninterrupted, unadulterated Crescent knives action. All right.
As far as fit and finish and stuff goes, there are just a number of things that just you can see are bare bones, or they just didn't put too much attention on. On this one, as we bring in one of the larger ones, you can see that the pivot, which is very reminiscent of a Civivi pivot, the pivot just isn't done perfectly. There's some scuffs there, blemishes out of that clamshell packaging. I'll try to get a closer look at the jimping so you can get an understanding of what I mean. So yeah, it just is a little bit wonky, but it works, and that is perfectly fine for me. So the bigger ones, let's talk about those real quick. The bigger ones are harpoon style. So I really like the blade on these. They're super attractive, and they definitely fit the bill for a larger knife. The only problem with them, again, is that weight. That might be something that for a number of people, it could start to keep this from being as pocket friendly as you would want. The other thing about these two, and I don't know if this is just a coincidence, but the jimping is not as grippy on either of them. You do have this thumb ramp, which is comfortable, so it does help you get it locked in. But it's not as deep on either of these, and you can see on this one, the 5CR15 larger version, is just super shallow, so it's almost not really good at all. So again, that might just be a machining issue. That might be a fit and finish consistency issue. I don't know. The lockup on both of these though, is fantastic again. So we have that. The only thing that I don't like, and maybe it's because I have like smaller hands than maybe is meant to carry the knife this size, is that just with the handle being this much bigger, there is just more room for you to slide around. So it just doesn't lock in as well in general. I definitely don't prefer these two over the smaller ones. So that's that. The other thing, and the one thing I wanted to mention about the action, and I think it's on this one, the D2 one here, is that, yeah, this D10 is really stiff, which again isn't a bad thing because once you break it, it flies, but you can fail opening it. You know, sometimes, a couple times when I've tried to open it, you know, my finger has slipped down just because it takes a good amount of pressure to get that kicked open. So, but overall, talking about the price point here, so 16 to 25, 26 bucks for these knives. These are knives that you could get them and take care of them and have them for a long time and maintain them. But what these really remind me of is sort of a step up in like the hardware store knife market. You know, if you think about brands like Coast Knives or the ones that, you know, you go to Lowe's or Home Depot or any of those hardware stores and you pick up something like that in like the $10 to $15 range, and actually those have gone up, and I think they're more like 12 to 20 at this point. You know, this is something to compete with those, and I really think that in that kind of discussion, these compare pretty favorably. Are these going to have all the bells and whistles that even like a $25, $30 Kershaw will? Probably not, you know, and most of those knives are a little bit more refined in their design, a little bit more refined in their execution. These knives, not so much, and I think that was intentional. I think that with all four of these Crescent tool knives, that you have this philosophy of, let's get a knife in someone's hands that they're going to be able to use and they'll beat the crap out of. If they lose it, if they break it, if they damage it, if they beat it up so bad that it doesn't work anymore, then they're really not out that much money. That said, again, for my needs and my purposes, I'm going to carry this knife. I've been carrying this one quite a bit, and I think it's going to serve me well for a good long while, and I have no reservation saying that. So yeah, I feel pretty good about that, and I'm excited to see how people respond to this sort of knife, especially the people who use their knives, because this is one of those that I think if you like the designs and you like just the basic look of it, it's something that could compete for pocket time with the people who just carry Ganzos and beat the crap out of them. And I think ergonomically and action-wise, there's just a lot to say about having a knife that feels this good in the hand at like the $16, $17 price point, you know? And we can go back and forth and say, oh, well, for only a couple bucks more, you can get this or that. And yeah, you know, you can. You're always going to be able to make that debate. But in this case, I think you have a pretty good knife at the price, and it's a good start to see what Crescent is going to do. And who knows where this goes from here. All right, guys, so that is my take. Thank you again to Steve Kluver for sending these my way. I'll have these two headed to you soon, buddy. Yeah, but I appreciate this opportunity, and I'm guessing that this one will eventually be part of a giveaway because I'm not trying to be rebellious and say I prefer the cheaper steel just for the sake of saying it, but I just like this knife more than this. And it's just a matter of weight balance and the way that it feels in the hand, and this one has served its purpose for me, so I'm definitely going to be holding on to this one myself. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching. Let me know your thoughts on it. What's your favorite sub $20 knife? Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions apart from that, let me know as well. Take some time. Think about your health in these troubled times. Pick up some one-a-day men's vitamins, but not if you're breastfeeding. Thanks for watching, and take care.